This is the captain of the Enterprise. Ship.
Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the ridiculous introductions I am forced to read at gunpoint, or should I say phaser point.
Ship.
Welcome to Ship, yet another in the long line of tedious Star Trek podcasts. This show is hosted by David Lawler and David B. Anderson. The two Davids will take you on a journey through time and space every 3 or 4 weeks, boldly podcasting where no podcast has gone before. Seriously? This is what you're making me read? Take it away, boys.
Hello, this is David Anderson, and this is Ship to Ship, a Star Trek podcast. Here with me, as always, is Mr. David Lawler. How are you this evening?
I'm all right. This is a marathon session. We just did the Stephen Hawking episode, so now we're launching into this one.
I'm losing command. I'm losing the Enterprise.
Launching into old school Star Trek, and the first episode we're going to talk about is the return of the Archons.
That's from season 1.
Number 1 on our list of things to do.
This is again, we explore certain themes in order to do this, because we know that there's a million Star Trek podcasts out there, of course. Probably one about Shatner's toupee, for all we know.
Mind your own business, Mr. Spock. I'm sick of your half-breed interference. Do you hear?
I think that's ours.
So we pick these episodes based on their themes, and this episode is about the various computers that Kirk has destroyed. Kirk is known for 2 things in Star Trek: bedding down the alien babes and destroying computers. And he does it quite a bit, but these are like the 3 that really stick out as far as computers.
He seems to do it by messing with the computer's brain, and then they always seem to self-destruct.
Get a life, will you, people?
Like that's the whole point of, like, don't you mean that if it
you point out the logic, the failure of logic in the computer.
Yeah.
Seems like something Spock should do, but apparently I guess Spock has a very computer-like analytical mind. Maybe he can't do it because he's thinking too much like the computer. But he does help Kirk. He does help Kirk in this first episode.
After watching this and then going to the next one where they meet Nomad, I was like, I know what he's going to do. After seeing this one,
it's like, oh, here he goes.
Oh, I know what he's going to. Oh, okay, I can see where this is going. Okay. It's
right.
Weird. It's like, again, most of these are kind of generally new to me. Like, I know bits and pieces and I've seen bits and pieces, but sitting down and watching them, it's a different experience for me.
Right. Okay, so we start off with Lieutenants Sulu and O'Neill, who are undercover, and they're on this planet trying to figure out what happened to a ship that disappeared there over 100 years before, called the Archon.
Yes. These sort of very slow moving. This is something you could do in a series at this time frame of, like, people just move slowly and they're like, no, and they just move slowly towards them.
Yeah.
Even though they're running away, he, like, points a stick at him and it goes, wee, and then when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's what turned him gay.
Ah.
He just went, oh.
Yeah. O'Neill takes off. Apparently they went down with the wrong costumes or something, so they were obviously easy to spot. They're being chased by these guys with hooded cloaks and crazy little hollow tubes, and Sulu is, like, waiting to be transported up, because I guess back then you couldn't run and be transported, although I did just see an episode of Deep Space Nine where someone was running and got transported as they were running.
That was many years later. I mean, hell, they even did a thing in the newer version of Star Trek where they figured out how to.
Are you talking about the show that we're not allowed to talk about?
No, the new movies.
Oh, the new movies. Oh, okay. The movies we're not allowed to talk about.
But they basically do beam someone up while they're in warp, if I'm not mistaken.
My name is Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So O'Neill takes off, and Sulu is zapped by the thing. He gets beamed up, and suddenly he's like talking about paradise, and he just keeps saying paradise, paradise. So Kirk is appropriately alarmed, and then he beams down with a big contingent, including his first officer and McCoy. He leaves Scotty in command, and he brings down some security people too. And okay, this is such a weird. I love this. I love this episode so much. It comes from an original story by Gene Roddenberry, and I know exactly what he was aiming for. He was trying to do a kind of religious commune situation. He was making a kind of symbolist comparison to Christianity. That's what I think he was going for. He was because they talk about Landru. Landru is their leader, their god or whatever, and they talk about the will of Landru and the good of the body and things like that. These are very religious allegories going on here.
Odd. The expression on that man's face. Mindlessness. Vacant contentment.
Like Sulu. If everybody on this planet is like him, let's go.
Joy to you, friends.
Joy to you.
You'll be strangers. Come for the festival, eh, ya?
Yes.
Got a place to sleep it off yet? Go round to Rager's house. He's got rooms. But you'll have to hurry. It's almost the red hour.
Well, it looked to me like it was like, well, we have the access to the set of Gunsmoke for 2 days.
Yeah, I think
what can we do with it?
It was the Culver City background where we saw Miri. Remember the Miri episode?
Oh,
it's just cleaned up. It's a very nice. It's kind of nice looking. Yeah, it is a Western set, but their clothing. I can't really quite place the clothing in terms of historical.
It looks like kind
Contested-
of Old West. It looks very sort of maybe like
They were-
it looks
okay,
very
yeah.
Back to the Future. You know what it looks very Back to the Future Part 3.
That's why Sulu and O'Neill were busted, because they were wearing kind of what looked like revolutionary outfits, American revolutionary outfits, right? Mm-hmm. That he says these are the clothes they wear, not these.
Speaking of clothes, I mean, you have Spock, and he's wearing like a robe. He's almost doing like a Star Trek 4 thing where he's kind of covering his ears.
He's got a weird robe thing because he thinks that this weird-ass culture is going to think he's weird for having pointed ears. They get caught in the middle of something called a festival. At 6 o'clock, the red hour strikes, and the festival is just everyone in the town going fucking crazy. And
Yeah, I don't even know what they're doing. At first, I thought, is it going to get rapey? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it is getting rapey. It is a little rapey because you're grabbing
Yeah, but
women.
Look, there's no. Look, he's grabbed. Look, the women are being grabbed.
The women
and
are
they're
being
moving
grabbed.
around, and then they're throwing things at each other.
But
and
the
they're-
women
but
are
they're-
grabbing the men too.
But nothing is really happening. They're just sort of flailing around.
You get that wonderful music, that
crazy.
dun 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 dun, and Kirk's like, "Let's get out of here!" And then they go to this guy's house where he has rooms for rent or something. Reger, I believe is his name, and then there are other two people, Hakem and Tamar, who are these old men, and for some reason they're not susceptible to this red hour, so they don't go nuts or anything, right? So they stay there for a little while, watching all of this horrible shit going on in the streets. Everybody sleeps or something. Everybody takes naps. For some reason, Spock is his eyes are open while he's sleeping. I don't know why. Maybe Vulcans don't sleep that way. Maybe they sleep with their eyes.
Maybe he
open.
wasn't sleeping. Maybe he was still planning because he's logical.
Maybe he's meditating.
Yeah.
Okay, so they get up and then they hear the girl screaming downstairs, the redheaded girl, who is Reger's daughter, and she was like, I guess she was raped or attacked or assaulted or something because
I don't see anything when they look
But
out
she
the
was
window
crying.
and they see
he was
there's
holding
not
her and
much-
she was crying. And she was freaking out over this. So they had.
Well, they're freaking out, but I don't see any. I didn't see any rapey. I didn't see any nudity.
But there's
I didn't see any.
But the sociologist that they brought with him, Lindstrom, is freaked out by the girl, and he says later on they're passing all the people in the town and cleaning up after the festival, and the one guy that met them initially, he says, "Good morning," and he grabs Reger and he says, "Your daughter, that's the man." So obviously he thinks that this man raped his daughter. That's what I was looking at.
Yes.
And he says, "No, it wasn't him. It was Landru." And I was like, "What? Landru raped the girl? I don't know what's going on here."
Well,
exactly.
it's just that when they get up in the morning and they look out the window, all the people are still out there and just sort of standing there.
They stand up and they just go about their business as though nothing happened. But why is it's very interesting to me. Why is the girl crying? No one else seems to be crying. They all seem to be like, back to business. Whereas
Yeah, they didn't seem to fully understand what they were trying to sort of, or maybe they had something that was very rapey, but then standards and practices said
they
can't
pulled
do this,
back
you
on
can't
it.
do
They
that.
pulled back on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with this crazy ass place that they landed in, and they need to find their men, and they need to figure out the mystery of what happened to this ship that disappeared. And so they come to the conclusion that this leader, this guy Landru, died 6,000 years ago, and that he programmed a computer with all of his instructions before he died, and this computer has been running this culture. So, and Spock is absolutely amazed. Spock is in like some kind of weird orgasmic Vulcan heaven, because he's like, this entire society is a computer's idea of perfection, which is apparently that you go and you engage in regular activity, but then you have like this period where it turns into an orgy. For some reason, I don't.
When I saw
that's
this,
what I don't understand.
first...
What is this orgy shit? What does orgy?
I don't see orgy. All I see is just chaos.
It's okay.
It's like the most clean kind of chaos.
Well,
it's not like something like.
But you need to understand this is the late
torches
'60s
and everything. When I saw it, I was reminded of. Have you seen these movies, The Purge?
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of that, like a little bit of.
But why are we having a purge?
One assigned time where we do chaos.
But why are we doing
whatever
this,
we
though?
want, and then the rest of the year we have to behave?
But why? What is productive about that? I don't understand why a computer would think that was productive. Because they knew humanity, and they knew that we all have that in us. So it's like we have one day when we just do it, or I don't know. So they arrest Kirk, Spock, and the rest of the people, and they start putting them in absorption chambers. They take McCoy, and McCoy comes back, and he's all pleasant and everything. It's weird. There's a funny bit there where Kirk is trying to talk to McCoy, and McCoy, you can't take the doctor out of him. So he says things, but he says them in a doctorly like way. He says, "Blessed be the body and health to all of its parts," which is very strange. So it turns out there's an underground, and they deliberately they spare Kirk and Spock. So Kirk and Spock go in there. They confront this computer, and Kirk launches into the first of many speeches that he gives computers, where he says,
when he talks to was it at the end when he talks to the computer?
Yeah, he says, without freedom of choice, there is no creativity. Without creativity, there is no life. The body dies. And he says, you are the evil. The evil must be destroyed. So Landru starts going, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. And then it blows up.
Yeah, it looks like what a 60s version of a computer would be, but it's all made out of like cardboard.
It looks like it's made of cardboard, yeah, with a bunch of
a couple of lights, and like, hey, that was a computer then. So
yeah, well, it looked good on a tube TV, not so much
on a black and white 12-inch tube TV from 10 feet away.
From about 10, 15 feet away, I'd say. It's a great. I love this episode for what it reveals. I also have questions. I have so many questions because I feel like they started writing one episode and then wound up writing another one at the end. Yeah,
I can see that. Like
it's well made. I mean, it's a great for an episode that doesn't make much sense, and a lot of episodes don't, especially toward the end of the run. This is one of the better episodes that don't make any sense.
I mean, it looks like when they go into that chamber where the computer is, and then there's that wall and everything. It looks like the sort of the big room that they go into. It looks like it's a redressed version of like part of the ship set.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Well, they had actually Star Trek had the luxury of 2 sound stages, and a lot of shows didn't get that. Like it had a standing set for the ship, and then it had a separate sound stage for alien environments. So they were actually,
and they couldn't really reuse stuff from say like Mission Impossible, as far as I could tell.
No. And what's more, I mean, like they had, because it cost so much to have those sets and the costumes and all the practical stuff that they had to build. They actually had working stuff that they had to go dumpster diving for a lot of like props and pieces.
One might wonder. And it looks crappy now, but this is a very ambitious show for its time.
Very much. Yeah.
One might wonder why this thing didn't get canceled at the first season when the ratings were so crappy.
Well, it actually did very well in the ratings, but not enough to justify the cost. It would usually only get second or third place for the 3 networks in its time slot. Mainly second place. It would place second on its day, on the day that it was like the. But
wouldn't it be up against some Western on another network? It was way cheaper to
sometimes make? Gunsmoke would win. Sometimes Gomer Pyle would win. Bewitched was a pain in the ass for the show, but mainly like the CBS evening movie would beat Star Trek handily.
Wow.
So people would like to watch a movie. But it was in danger of cancellation halfway through its first season. It was in danger of cancellation at the end of the first season. And it was almost about to be canceled at the end of the second season until the letter writing campaign brought it back. So it had a lot of fans. They had a lot of demographics. The real problem with Star Trek was Gene Roddenberry. He had a terrible relationship with the network. and they didn't like him. He hated them. He didn't like them telling him what to do. He didn't like their restrictions, their censorship, and things like that. This episode actually is one of the more thinly veiled attacks on religion. Gene Roddenberry was an atheist mainly. He was more of a humanist. He tended to embrace Eastern concepts. He was very much into Buddhism and things like that. He was very much into individualism, and this was one of his. If there were a few things that irritated him about 20th century culture, it was like politics. He hated politics. He hated drugs, and he hated religion.
Wow, this is the late 60s. This is a big. I mean, he's so counterculture that he's so out that he's in.
Yeah.
Where do we find him?
We do not see him. We hear him in the Hall of Audiences.
In this building?
Yes.
You're going to take us there.
Oh.
Snap out of it. About Landru.
There was war. Convulsions. The world was destroying itself. Landru was our leader. He saw the truth. He changed the world. He took us back. Back to a simple time. A time of peace and tranquility.
What happened to him?
He's still alive. He's here now. He sees, he hears. We have destroyed ourselves. Please, no more.
You said you wanted freedom. It's time you learned that freedom is never a gift. It has to be earned. Come on. We're going to find Landru.
No, I was wrong. I submit. I bear myself to the will of Landru.
It's too late for that.
No, lawgivers, help! Help me!
All right. It's up to you. Take us to Landru.
The network was the network tried to sell sex. He obviously he wanted the women to wear pants, and the network said no. We want to see their legs, or you get no show. And he was like, and that pissed him off. So a lot of that stuff is, so he would attack religion in that way. And this is it's such a great example of it. It's interesting because I can't really figure out how you can fix the script to stay on topic, because it starts out as religious allegory, and then it turns into anti-computers, and Kirk is very good at making computers blow up. So there's a great line at the end where Kirk says that the society had no soul. It was all controlled by a computer. And Spock says, I prefer the concrete, the graspable, the provable. And Kirk says, you'd make a splendid computer, Mr. Spock. And Spock looks at him and goes, that is very kind of you, Captain.
Yes.
So, Spock loves computers. In fact, I think if Spock were the captain, he would just kind of let Landru off with a warning. He says, don't let it get too out of hand.
Remember, the character of Spock, he was always, in a weird way, trying to fight his humanity and become fully Vulcan.
Yeah, until we get to the movies.
And he wanted to fully embrace the logic of being a Vulcan and not be human. And yet, deep down, Vulcans are even worse than humans, really, when you think about it. That's why they became the super logical people
where he says
they were.
in the motion picture, he says logic and knowledge are not enough. So I enjoyed this episode. What did you think of it?
I thought it was good. I was like, oh, I know where this is going. And then, of course, in the next episode, I was like, oh, I know where this is going.
Of course, you knew where that was going anyway, because we had just finished watching.
We had just, that was part of it. But then I could just, and I mean, we're speaking of the motion picture. It's like half the plot of the motion picture is the next episode that we're going to do.
Yes.
Which is
the Changeling from the second season, the 8th episode, I believe, in production order. Written by John Meredith Lucas, who would go on to produce the show in the latter half of the second season, and also be quite a good writer, producer, and director for the show. Mm-hmm. John Meredith Lucas also wrote several episodes of the Planet of the Apes television series. This episode was first aired September 29th, 1967. How many years ago was that? 51 years? Jesus Christ. So we had watched Star Trek The Motion Picture for episode 106 of our show, Ship to Ship.
Yes.
And we talked about it. And the motion picture takes several key points from this episode. And it's very interesting to me. I did not see John Meredith's name anywhere in the credits. But then you also realize that when you write something for a production or studio entity, it then becomes their property.
Interesting.
You can kind of rip off writers doing that. This one is about Nomad, which is an alien probe, or a probe that it identifies itself as Nomad. It attacks the Enterprise, and then Kirk, I don't know, he gives him his name. He says, this is Captain James Kirk. For some reason, Nomad has him confused with his creator.
I was half expecting him to call him the Kirk unit.
The Kirk unit. Yeah, I believe that the name of the creator of Nomad was Jackson Roy Kerr.
This is the creator of Nomad, perhaps the most brilliant, though erratic scientist of his time. His dream was to build a perfect thinking machine, capable of independent logic. You recall his name?
Of course, Jackson Roy Kirk.
Jackson Roy Kirk, Captain James Kirk.
Yes, similar. Captain, I believe that Nomad thinks you are Roy Kirk. That may well be why the attack was broken off. It responded to your name as well as its damaged memory banks permitted.
What do we have on Nomad itself, Spock?
Well, that's not the same. Essentially, it is, Doctor. I believe that more happened to it than just damage in the meteor collision. It mentioned the other. The unanswered question is, the other what? Nomad was a thinking machine, the best that could be engineered. It was a prototype.
Its purpose was certainly altered. Its directive to seek out and destroy biological infestations could not have been programmed into it.
As I recall, it wasn't. It was supposed to be the first interstellar probe to seek out new life forms.
Precisely, Doctor. And somehow that programming has been changed. It would seem that Nomad is now seeking out perfect life forms, perfection being measured by its own relentless logic.
Yeah,
Which
he
sounds
had
a lot
Kirk
like
in his name, and he confused him. Yeah, and then that's actually like a plot point that is later used to mess with the computer.
Right. Yeah, that's how Kirk eventually gets the computer to gets the probe to blow himself up.
Yeah.
But first, we start off with Nomad coming aboard the ship. They think that for a second there, they think that that Nomad is a ship with tiny little alien people in it, right? And
yeah.
He's like, what kind Scotty says, what kind of intelligent creatures could exist in that thing? Spock immediately shuts him down. He says, intelligence does not require bulk, Mr. Scott. So they bring Nomad aboard. He's revealed to be a probe. They put two and two together and they say, didn't we launch a probe called Nomad a long time ago? And he says, but yeah, Nomad didn't look anything like this. So
I just realized somebody should do like a fan edit, like this episode and motion picture. You know,
that would be a weird combination because you got.
I mean, I'm just thinking like, you know, when he talks about like what Nomad, and then you could have him say Voyager. You know, you can just cut that like together.
Voyager 6.
Voyager 6. Yes.
So and then they bring Nomad aboard, and Nomad causes nothing but havoc. My God, I don't know how.
Oh yeah,
I lose count of
Star Trek at the beginning is a hard to port. Hard to starboard. That's even before the
frankly,
credits.
Captain, I'm exhausted. They bring Nomad aboard. He looks at their star charts. He figures out, oh, you are the creator, the Kirk. For some, Nomad is hearing Uhura singing. Uhura is singing that song that she sang from The Conscience of the King, I believe. And he comes.
Oh, it's the same song?
Yeah, Beyond Antares, which I guess I'll throw in a little bit of, so everyone.
Jeez, I was like I didn't register.
Yeah, it's like this. Where my heart is, where my heart is, and then Nomad comes up to the bridge and he's like, "What is the meaning of that? What are you doing?" And then it's like, "I was singing. I felt like music." Okay, and he shoots a beam into her head.
I mean, but does it have to be a black person that's musical?
Oh,
I mean, does it have to be?
Sorry. See, that's racist. That's racist.
I mean, she might as well just begin.
How sweet this public domain song is.
He shoots a beam into her head and says, "Think about music," which is like fucked up. Scotty tries to intercede. Nomad fucking kills Scotty right there on the bridge. McCoy's like, he's dead, Jim. They take him down. He says, do you want me to fix Scotty? Do you want me to fix the unit? And he says, can you? And he's like, yeah, I can fix it. And so they bring Nomad down to sick bay. For some reason, Nomad's able to completely repair Scotty after killing him, but he can't do anything about Uhura. He's like,
yeah, that was what I found that strange.
Like, why can't
and also something interesting I found out about, like I realized about the Nomad. It looks like it's, and you can't see it probably because of what they're using, or maybe the filament of what, like the string, but it looks like it's being like on a string.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of being moved. And I'm guessing it's because it'll like get to a door, they'll have a reaction shot, and then it'll be outside the door.
Yeah.
Because it can't get through that thing. It's a good effect. I'm not saying
it's okay. It gets a little bit wobbly though. It's unfortunate.
It gets a little wobbly, but at least you can't see the string. And it may have to do with the lighting, or just the fact that it's such a kind of a grainy print, a little bit. So you can't really see it in the grain. If it was like less grainy, you might see it.
So he tells Kirk, I can't fix Uhura because I've completely wiped its memory bank. So they get really ambitious. They're like, okay, we'll put Uhura through school again, and we'll have her she obviously still knows her native Swahili. So they have Christine teaching her again. Like,
yeah, that was another thing where I'm like, does the black woman have to be speaking Swahili? Do we have to go there?
Well, she's African.
She's African?
Yeah.
I always thought of her as just Earth.
She's let me see. Let me find Uhura's background. Her first name is Nyota, by the way. Nyota Uhura. Uhura, whose name means freedom. She walks in beauty like the night. That's what Spock told her.
I thought maybe she'd be from Wakanda or something.
Don't, for God's sake. She's of African descent. She's fluent in Swahili. Aptitude for mathematics, it says here. Because
where's Sulu from? I mean, he's supposed to, according to George Takei, he's supposed to be Pan Asian. I mean,
he's from San Francisco.
Oh, that's right. He was born there. Duh, I forgot. San Francisco. I was born there. That's right.
So our charming negress has to go through school again with Christine. Yeah. And it's kind of a funny scene that's a little bit sad because Uhura is a lot smarter than this, but she has a minor victory when she says the dog has a ball. And they're all hugging and congratulating her and everything. It's a very sweet scene. The ball is Bluey, and then
bag of beefy.
They have to, so they bring her up to college level within a week, which means these people are fucking geniuses apparently that they can do that. Meanwhile, Kirk has to deal with this, and Spock decides to mind meld with the device, and I don't know how that's possible. Do you? I mean, like, he does this whole mind meld with the...
he did it with V'ger.
He did, but,
sort of,
but V'ger,
much to his detriment, but he did it.
V'ger does a better job of showing us that it's a combination of two entities, where there is consciousness but also a machine. So I believe Spock more when he's trying to mind meld with V'ger, because V'ger seems like it's alive.
Because this is
this is a machine. I don't understand.
This is two machines that merged.
Yeah, they basically okay. So Spock mind melds with the thing, and he goes into vapor lock in his mind meld, right? The same way he does in motion picture. Totally flips out. Spock, Kirk has to grab him and say, he says, "You're in contact with the unit, Spock. Stop."
I am Nomad. I am performing my function. Deep emptiness. It approaches. Collision. Damage. Blackness. I am the other. I am Tan-Ru. Tan-Ru. Nomad. Tan-Ru. Error. Flaw. Imperfection. Must sterilize. Rebirth. We are complete. Much power. Gun Ka, Nu, Ika, Han, Ru. The Creator instructs, search out, identify, sterilize imperfections. We are nomad. We are nomad. We are complete. We are instructed. Our purpose is clear. Sterilize imperfections. Sterilize imperfections. Nomad. Sterilize. Sterilize. Nomad. Sterilize. Nomad. Spock. Sterilize. Nomad.
You're in contact with the unit Spock.
Nomad.
Stop.
Sterilize.
Stop. Acknowledged.
Spock comes to the conclusion that our Nomad probe collided with another alien probe, and the two became one, which is again very similar to the motion picture. So Kirk has to figure out what to do about V'ger. So he gets locked in a battle of wits after V'ger has killed a whole bunch of red shirts. Like a lot of red shirts die in this one. So he's like, maybe I can pull a Landru. So he's like, okay. I'm the Kirk, the creator, and he says, you are the creator. And he says, you're wrong. Jackson Royker was your creator. You have mistaken me for him. You are flawed and imperfect. Execute your prime function. His prime function is to seek out imperfect life forms and destroy them.
It's almost like the opposite of their mission to seek out new life
theirs
forms.
was to seek out new life forms and hopefully have sex with them. Whereas Nomads is destroy, seek and destroy. Yeah. So they finally, he finally has him. He uses the computer, the Nomad probe's own illogic.
And he doesn't just go error, error, error.
I will examine error.
And the voice gets really high. The voice,
and then doesn't he say like the first mistake or was it first?
Oh, he
first
said
error.
He said that was your first error. Your second error, you did not discover your error.
See,
he says,
I wish
this
function. Kind of logic could work on like actual human beings that are mistaken in many ways, and you just want to like confront them with logic.
I do that with my daughter, and my daughter, I swear to God, my daughter stops for a second, and I swear I smell a little smoke coming out of the back of her head because sometimes
It's sulfur.
Yeah, I'm like, but you said this, and then you said that.
You are now listening to Ship to Ship, a Star Trek podcast, with David Lawler and David B. Anderson. Boldly podcasting, where no podcast has... I'm not reading this. I'm not. Where's my coat? I'm getting out of here. I hate it here.
They get Nomad. Oh, there's a great funny line that Spock has. Spock gets a great line here. He says, your logic was impeccable, Captain. We are in grave danger. So they get Nomad to the transporter room, beam him out just as he explodes. And then after all the death, of course, we have another funny moment at the end where Kirk says, it's not easy to lose a bright and promising son, my son, the Doctor, because Nomad brought Scotty back to life. And that's pretty much it. So let's devote the rest of this time to this episode in its comparison with the motion picture. How do you compare and contrast the two?
I would say in a weird way, this is a better version of that story, although I would say motion picture is generally more entertaining and just bigger and louder.
Better visual effects, of course.
This has a better grasp on what they're trying to say than the motion picture, because the motion picture is all over the place as far as what it's trying to say. Whereas this is like, you generally understand what's going on. It's done in a somewhat cheap, clunky way, but you understand what's going on. Whereas the motion picture, I guess they kind of mix their metaphors a little bit.
Yeah, motion picture gets a little preachy and over philosophical.
Yeah,
I would say, because it's all about, is this all that I am? Is there nothing more? We're supposed to feel sympathy for V'ger. We don't feel sympathy for Nomad. Nomad is just terrible. He's just a killing machine.
I would agree.
All right, moving on to The Ultimate Computer, episode 24 from season 2, toward the end. Directed by John Meredith Lucas this time, from a teleplay by D.C. Fontana and a story by Lawrence N. Wolfe. Now, the Enterprise is called to a space station to remove all of their crew, which is kind of just a cheap pretense for getting rid of the crew. of this episode, so I don't have to pay anybody.
Yeah.
And the Enterprise is going to be in a war games scenario.
Yeah, and this is where another person shows up and has that interesting sort of different designation on his chest.
Oh yeah. He's Commodore, the Commodore dude.
He's the Commodore.
He has like a weird kind of
Commodore VIC-20.
He has like a patch that looks like a sun or something on his.
Yeah, it does.
Over his left tit. I don't know what that means. I guess that means he's like.
I think they would eventually get rid of that in the later thing. Everything would have the Starfleet insignia eventually.
Yeah. Early days still. So they're taking all the crew off. The Enterprise is going to be involved in a war games situation involving this new computer that's been built called the M5 Multitronic Unit, designed by Richard Daystrom. Daystrom's name would be used in the future for Next Generation and for Deep Space Nine and Voyager, the Daystrom Institute or something. He's considered like a pioneer of computer processing, and even Spock.
Although not the best. I mean, I guess whatever happened in this episode was glossed over later because he's kind of crazy in this.
Yeah, he's a bit of a nut. He's got a god complex. He regards M5 as kind of like his child in a way. It's like this weird computer thing going on here.
And I gotta say, I felt bad for the actor doing it because he had to really do the dialogue. He was giving these long speeches.
He's like, you know what? He's got this deep booming voice. He's very Shakespearean.
Yes.
He's Blackula. He's William Marshall, Blackula.
That's Blackula? Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out where I saw him before because it kept confusing me because his voice sounds very similar to that guy that was in Star Trek 6 and Star Trek 4.
You're talking about Brock Peters?
Brock Peters, yeah.
Yeah, Brock Peters was also,
but I knew
he was also on Deep Space
him.
Nine playing Sisko's dad.
Ooh!
Isn't that nice?
I knew it wasn't him though because he looks different, but the voice sounded similar to me. The way he talked.
Well, he's a very commanding. He's very commanding. Yes. He's imposing. He's tall, and he creates a kind of uneasy tension with Kirk, because Kirk is also very commanding, but he's not terribly tall. Whereas William Marshall is built. I mean, like he's built like a boxer. You know, he's got these enormous shoulders, and he's even taller than Nimoy. But Spock has like this kind of reverence for Daystrom because he's a guy who builds computers. And there's a great line actually when they put in M5. McCoy says to Kirk, he says, "Did you see the love light in Spock's eyes? The right computer finally came along." And I thought that was a really funny line.
Well, also remember historical context. How many things would you see where a mad scientist would be black? Well, like where a very smart scientist guy would be black. I in the late 60s.
You would not really see that.
You would see some sort of old, maybe sort of Jewish looking guy with like big scary hair. He might be something like that, but you wouldn't see sort of a middle-aged black dude.
Yeah. It's this is part of what Gene Roddenberry was trying to do, because it doesn't make sense that you're in 1968 and with all of the stuff that's going on, you got Martin Luther King out there, you got Malcolm X out there, and you can't. It's stupid because the network is like, no, we can't have that many blacks, or we can't have that many Asians, or we can't have any Hispanic people, and it's just idiotic because this is supposed to be the 23rd century. And in the 23rd century, we have put that away. We've put all of that stupid shit away.
And yet all the white men are still in charge. All the white men are still in charge.
And this is, this is like my major problem with, and how it could have been corrected. Gene Roddenberry, we talked about this before when we were talking about Next Generation. He didn't want any conflict. But he's looking at conflict from with the wrong lens. Because you can still have conflict and still have progress. We don't have to... we don't have to hold hands and sing Kumbaya all the time. We can get under each other's skin, and it doesn't have to be about the color of our skin.
Yeah.
It's like Obama.
Let me say something.
We waited too long we waited long enough for President Obama, right? I had issues with Obama as a president, but I didn't have issues with him because he was black. I just had issues because I hate fucking politicians, and I don't care what color they are. What were you going to say?
And I have issues with Trump because he's Trump, not because he's Republican.
I have issues with Trump because he's orange. Anyway,
yeah.
But what were you going to say? You had a point you were going to make before I talked your ear off.
I can't even remember. I think I was saying, like, you're talking about conflict. There's certainly conflict in this show, always.
There is, yeah. But this is like, they have their fights. Sometimes they have some really vicious fights. Kirk and Spock will have a fight. They'll beat the shit out of each other. Kirk and McCoy have some very nasty arguments. It's okay to do that. But Roddenberry seems to think that we put our toys aside because we're not children. So therefore, we have to be on our best behavior all the time. And I don't think that's true. I think you can be on your best behavior. I think you can appreciate and understand the differences and all that stuff, individual, whatever, infinite diversity, infinite combination, Vulcan thing that Spock's always talking about. But you can also get pissed off at people. There's nothing wrong with getting, and to me, that's what makes us human, is our capacity for getting pissed off at each other.
As long as we're human, we're never going to live in a utopian society. That's the problem. It's never going to be perfect.
Well, utopia is many things to many people. I guess to Roddenberry, utopia is there's no prejudice. But to me, utopia...
We're never going to have that. You can have two people of the exact same ethnicity, and they'll still find reasons to hate each other for various reasons, whether it be intelligence level or the way they do things or what they say or how they breathe.
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Okay, this is my liberal side coming out, but to me, utopia means we put away greed. We put away the need for money, things like that.
Like Star Trek, where they're still using money, and they're still using money.
Yeah. That's you take away greed, you take away perhaps capitalism, you improve the quality of life.
Every time we try to level the playing field, it always ends up. It's
well,
like
yeah,
weeds.
yeah.
You can cut
but I'm
the
not
weed,
necessarily. I'm
back.
not talking about socialism. I'm not talking about let's take all the money from the rich guy and give it to this other guy. Because what happens to that? You got a rich guy over here and a poor guy over, or something like that. Whatever that is, that utopia is not socialism for me. Utopia is a true human achievement, individualism, less of a culty thing, less of a mob thing.
Well,
remove the mob mentality, that kind of stuff.
As messed up as things are in America, and it's not perfect, it's still better than everywhere else.
Oh yeah,
and I think it's in the struggle we grow. That's my opinion of America. It's not perfect, but it's still better than everywhere else. People talk about how it's great in this country. Yeah, but it's boring, and honestly, they're all. You want to talk about racist? If you started bringing in as many different ethnicities as we have in America and put them in that country, you'd have civil unrest like you wouldn't know. Anytime in these countries where they say everything's perfect, any sort of immigrant tries to come in, as bad as it is with immigrants here, you try and have that kind of immigrant level and diversity over there, they lose their shit. Anytime some new kind of person comes in, they lose their shit. That's why it's so nice in that country, because it's basically one ethnicity and everybody's kind of the same and everybody's on the same page culturally. But we don't have that in this country. It's all different. So when you consider that, we get along about as good as any other as we can, because that's the way it is. So that's my belief. So there.
All right.
I just made America great again.
Yes, you did. MAGA. Hugh Mel Brooks and his speech 77 years ago.
Hail to the chief! Hail to the chief! Rum dum da dum dum da 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 da. Rum dum di da rum di dum da dum da da.
77 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this.
Bill, are you coming back?
In a moment, dear. Gentlemen, affairs of state must take precedent over the affairs of state.
They put the M5 in. Daystrom is very guarded about M5. He doesn't want anybody messing with it, including Spock. He doesn't want anybody. He doesn't want Spock anywhere near it. It executes a couple of tests perfectly, and Kirk begins to feel inadequate. He begins to feel that he's going to be out of a job, and he's upset about it. And McCoy has a great line here where he says, we're all sorry for the other guy when he loses his job to a machine, but when it comes to your job, that's different, and it always will be. And even Spock gets a good line in here where he says, computers make excellent and efficient servants, but I have no wish to serve under them. But then an unscheduled mission happens for the M5, and the M5 winds up destroying a ship. Then finally, Kirk has his reason to disconnect the computer. He doesn't like that damn thing being in there anyway. And Daystrom really doesn't want to disconnect M5. He keeps making allusions to M5 being his child or something, or comparing M5's behavior to a child. A big attack is planned, and this one is actually planned. But M5 decides to destroy a bunch of starships, and they're all blaming Kirk, even though Kirk has no power over the computer at the moment because M5 has completely taken over the ship. So it's like phasering, it's like destroying all these other starships, and they're trying to disconnect it. And so they try to get Daystrom to reason with the M5, and Daystrom just goes fucking nuts. He goes completely crazy.
M5 tie-in.
M5.
This is Daystrom.
Daystrom acknowledged.
M5, do you know me?
Daystrom, Richard. Originator of Comtronic Duotronic Systems. Born.
Stop. M5, your attack on the starships is wrong. You must break it off.
I don't like the sound of him, Jim.
You better pray that the M5 listens to the sound of it.
Programming includes protection against attack. Enemy vessels must be neutralized.
But these are not enemy vessels. These are Federation starships. You're killing. We're killing. Murdering. Human beings, beings of our own kind. But not created for that purpose. You're my greatest creation. The unit to save men. You must not destroy me.
This unit must survive.
Survive, yes. Protect yourself. But not murder. You must not die. Men must not die. To kill is a breaking of civil and moral laws we've lived by for thousands of years. You've murdered hundreds of people. We've murdered. How can we repay that?
They attacked this unit. Programming includes full freedom to choose defensive action in all attack situations.
The M5 is not responding to the computer. It's talking to you.
I am most impressed with the technology, Captain. Dr. Daystrom has created a mirror image of his own mind.
Consideration of all programming is that we must survive.
We will survive. Nothing can hurt you. I gave you that. If you are great, I am great. 20 years of groping to prove the things I'd done before were not accidents. Seminars and lectures to rows of fools who couldn't begin to understand my systems. Colleagues laughing behind my back at the boy wonder. And becoming famous, building on my work. Building on my work.
Jimmy's on the edge of a nervous breakdown, if not insanity.
The M5 must be destroyed.
Destroy it, Kirk? No. We're invincible. Look what we've done. Your mighty starships. More toys to be crushed as we choose.
You can't argue with a crazy person. They have their own process.
Kirk goes and he says, well, let me see. Landru, Nomad, let me try it on this one. So Kirk launches into a speech. I guess Nomad is kind of has recognized that he has committed murder and must die. So M5 shuts itself down and leaves the Enterprise open to an attack by the remainder of the starships that are involved in this war game procedure.
This unit cannot murder.
Why?
Murder is contrary to the laws of man and God.
But you have murdered. Scan the starship Excalibur, which you destroyed. Is there life aboard?
No life.
Because you murdered it. What is the penalty for murder?
Death.
And how will you pay for your acts of murder?
This unit must die.
Kirk decides to cut power just to show everybody that the Enterprise doesn't have any more power and it's defenseless.
Yeah. He did not decide to do the Battlestar Galactica offense, which is you waggle, you know.
What's the waggle? What
waggling.
Is that?
They're waggling. Well, it was when they got I'm cross-promoting now. It was when they got in a Cylon ship.
Are we talking new Battlestar or old?
I'm talking old Battlestar Galactica. They got in a Cylon ship. It was Starbuck and I think Boomer, and they were they were like trying to fly in, but they didn't want to get shot down, so they started to waggle because that was like not what a Cylon ship would do. And then they say he's waggling.
Oh, okay. I think I remember that.
I'm sorry, I'm Chris Cooling. Shout out to Chris Cooling. You probably got that one.
Chris Cooling, Forgotten TV.
Yes,
we've been watching Battlestar Galactica on MeTV, and I do believe I remember them.
You might see that one soon
then. I don't know where we are. Jane Seymour's dead.
Oh, then that's the very beginning.
Apollo's pissed off. There's been a couple of episodes.
That's the very beginning. That's the very beginning.
The most recent one we saw of Battlestar Galactica, I think, was what was it? Starbuck. Starbuck was in some kind of a prison. He had been arrested. He was with these prisoners who make this wine or something. Mm-hmm. And Arlene Martell was in the episode, actually. Arlene Martell played Spock's his fiance in an episode of Star Trek.
All these people popping up in different shows, just like we were talking about in Next Generation.
Yeah, that's right. John Colicos, actually, who plays Baltar, was a Klingon on an original episode of Star Trek, and then I remember that. And he replayed the character for a couple of episodes of Deep Space Nine as well.
Oh, in Deep Space Nine, did he have the later Klingon makeup,
or
did he have the old?
They all did. There was an episode.
See, now that messes up their continuity when they have that episode where they go back in time and they explain.
Well, yeah.
If he played the same character, he would have the old.
Yeah, it's some kind of a genetic mutation that Worf doesn't want to explain to anybody because they're wondering why the hell the Klingons don't have that crap on their forehead. But yeah,
and of course, in the new Star Trek, they kind of explain it sort of where they have the 12 tribes, but they don't show all of them. And
there's an episode of Deep Space Nine where Dax is reunited with the 3 Klingon captains from the original show, Koloth, Kang, and Kor, and they all have those forehead ridges. But I forget. Enterprise, they explained something that had to do with Dr. Soong, I believe, who had created some kind of a virus that caused that to happen for Klingons. So we get to the end of the episode, and Daystrom is going to be taken away in a straitjacket. He obviously went nuts.
Yeah.
Had a complete breakdown. This is actually, this is how Kirk deals with machines. He doesn't like them, and that's how he shuts them down.
The only thing he hates more is Klingons.
There is another episode, but it's not part of this run of episodes for us. This second episode featuring Harry Mudd, where Harry Mudd becomes the ruler of a bunch of androids on a planet, and Kirk and Spock and everybody else use wild, insane, irrational illogic to make them all blow up. But we'll save that for another time.
Yes.
So what did you think of this one, Dave?
I liked it. Again, it becomes where you watch it and you're like, oh, I know what's going to happen. I mean, you kind of just like, once I watched the first one, I'm like, and I got to the second one, I'm like, this is probably going to end pretty much the same way. And it does. Although I did kind of like his idea of, because in the war games, like the guy, he's not going to shoot us down. He knows it was his humanity that saved them. Like he said, he did it the human way. And that's how he knew that the guy wouldn't shoot him, because he's another human. He'll know what decision to make because he's a human being.
I think all of these episodes are very well made, very good examples of Star Trek. Good starter episodes for a lot of people too.
Yeah.
Now, there was one thing that I did want to mention. Like back in the late '60s, computers were nowhere near as sophisticated as they would be 20 years later, and then another 20 years after that, and what we have now. Eventually, I mean, I think it's very disturbing, but we are becoming more dependent on computers. We are becoming more dependent on computers, smartphones.
Oh, I know that. I know I am.
I don't use smartphone. I don't use cell phones. I don't use that stuff. I'm not really into it. I'm not fascinated by it. And quite frankly, for me, I really don't need the extra bill, because it's just another goddamn bill you got to pay.
Well, I mean, yeah, for me, it's more like my phone bill is $76 a month, and I have unlimited call, text, and I need to be able to make phone calls. I like being able to text. I can do emails on my phone, but mostly I use my smartphone. It's more of like I'm very much of a spend too much time in the bathroom kind of person.
Okay.
And I'm just sort of there, and it gives me something to do.
Do you watch television shows and movies on that little phone?
No, I don't. Well,
a lot of people do, and I don't get it.
Like funny videos on Facebook, yes. if I'm sitting down to watch a movie, no. The most downgrade I will do is on my computer, but that's really rare. Most of the time, especially since my computer is hooked up to my my TV. So even if I'm watching a movie that's say like loaded in my computer, I will still watch it on my TV. Yeah, I'm like not a. It's usually only like a funny video or.
Do you think that you could live without your phone? Say there was some kind of a massive electromagnetic shockwave
EMP.
or something that destroyed cell phones or something. Could you do without? Could you?
I'd have to.
Or what if like medical stuff came out that said that there was a connection between cell phones and cancer and cell phones and all kinds of other stuff? I've read stuff that says that it's microwaving people's brains, you know, especially 5G service. 5G is apparently microwaving people's brains. Not any reason that I don't need to have a phone. I don't really need one. What I want to do, when my daughter goes to 6th grade next year, I want to get her a cell phone.
It's good to have for an emergency.
I guess, but the thing is, didn't we do fine without phones? I mean, like, I don't understand. You know, I was talking to who was I talking to? My mother-in-law, I think. My mother-in-law grew up in a generation where they didn't even have phones, a lot of people, when they were kids, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, it was a luxury to have a phone back then. It was considered a luxury. And then they became steadily part of the house. And then you would have phones. And I always had a phone when I was a kid. There was always a phone.
I'll give you an example of, like, the advantages of having a phone, a smartphone, and whatever. Okay, so right now, as we speak, I am trying to coordinate purchasing and helping my parents purchase a TV.
Okay.
The way it works is I have been going on websites and emailing them links so that then when my mom goes on her, she has just a cell phone, but she has like literally like an emergency cell phone for like when she goes out. But so what I will do is like I'm on my phone. I look at the website, I send them a link. So then when she opens her email on her, she has an actual computer, as do I.
Yeah.
She's able to coordinate. I'm able to coordinate things, trying to figure something out and send her so that and then eventually it's looking like I'm basically going to order everything, have it delivered to me. And then I'm going to take it, set it up here, make sure it works, and then take it to them at the designated time.
Okay.
And then they'll just reimburse me at some later time. Being able to coordinate things. And then I had to talk to her on the phone too, because she kept sending me these emails of like, I don't want to use this stand and I don't want to do this. And
so she has a cell phone too?
She has a cell phone,
Okay.
but when I call her, I have to call her on her like house phone or condo phone.
Or landline.
Landline, which isn't even a landline. It goes through her cable company so it goes technically over the internet.
Well,
but
yeah, I have that too.
I have to but I'm able to coordinate things of like, oh crap, I got an email from mom. Okay, I got to call her to clarify some things. And it's like, I wouldn't be able to get things done like this without a smartphone. It would be a much huger pain in the ass.
Well,
to
that
just
doesn't
coordinate
necessarily mean. I mean, I was able to do. I'm pretty much able to do anything I want to do without a smartphone.
GPS.
I don't do GPS. We don't drive. We don't have a car. We live in the city.
Oh, that's right. You don't have. Well, I do.
Well,
And
even then,
have
I mean, but the thing is, your mother and my mother-in-law are from that generation, basically. I guess baby boomers, you would call them.
My mom's old. My mom's 7. My mom's 80.
Oh, okay. Well, she's a little bit older than a baby.
She's
boomer.
old. She's like just past greatest generation old.
A little bit, yeah. Probably, yeah. She's probably more like my father-in-law's age. She's around those years too. But the point being, these people got along fine without cell phones before. I asked my mother-in-law. I said, "What would you do if you didn't have a cell phone?" She said, "I'd die. I mean, I need my cell phone." I said, "Did you need it? You're talking about a technology that is fairly recent, actually, that really didn't, become as sophisticated as it did until maybe about 10 years ago, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
You got along fine without a cell phone before. Why do you need one now?" She said, "I just do. I've become dependent on it." So
it's a more complicated world. I mean, it just makes it easier. Like the GPS. Okay, so I went and visited a friend of mine. Is actually like almost job related, but I had to go to a city and it was kind of dark and it was icy and I knew generally where it was, but I was able to GPS and I got close. I got like really close to where I was supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, I still can't see and I'm just about to drive over a cliff here. I got to figure this out. So I looked at the GPS and it showed me like, you are here. This is where you want to go. You just have to drive up the street. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, but remember,
so
like back in the old
that.
days, if your mom drove or something like that, you just got, you were going to a place that you didn't really know, you got directions. I mean, like, They would give you directions. Take this road,
they
get
gave
off
me
here,
those-
get
they
off this
gave me-
exit.
The thing is, okay, so I did the GPS. They gave me directions. Like I had the address, and then the Google Maps gave me directions of like. So I was following the directions, but I couldn't see.
Okay.
So I had to be like, I basically had to follow an arrow. I was like, and then eventually when I got there, I said, "I'm here. Can you see me?" And then she got out of her house and she waved and she's like, "I'm here." And I'm like, okay, thank God I actually parked in the right place. It was a scary place to be. It was like when I was going there, I was like, man, this is the kind of place people dump bodies.
But that's okay. That supports my theory that people have kind of gotten a little bit weaker as a result of so much technology that's out there helping them.
Oh, come on. I'm an old man. I already know how to do enough things. Let me have my nice little knickknacks. Come on.
It's a nice little knickknack, but it's like something that isn't, for me, it's just not necessary. Because I think we're scared. I think as a culture we've gotten more insulated. We've gotten more frightened of things. Look at, and also it isn't just that you get frightened. It's just that you're worried other people are going to judge you. Like
I don't give two shits about people judging me.
One of the reasons I'm moving toward getting Regan a phone when she gets in the 6th grade is because you have a lot of people out there judging you about how you are handling your own children or your own family. It's not so much that I'm worried that she's going to get lost or abducted. It's that I'm worried other people are going to think I don't care about her. So there are certain things that we have to do as parents.
You can just tell people I care enough about her to not get her. And by the way, what is she? She's 12 now?
She's going to be 12 in December. Yeah, I know. I was walking home from school, which was quite a distance away when I was 10 years old. But we can't do that anymore with kids. Apparently, we all have to be helicopter parents. So well, look at it this way: in 6.5 years, she'll be 18. She can do whatever the hell she wants. I guess
she can get her own phone.
By that time, I hope to have enough wisdom instilled in her that she's able to make good decisions for herself. That's all.
And by the way, does she hate you because of all of these? You being such a Luddite? Is she pissed off at you?
No. Because I got.
Well, then that's all that really matters.
No, but I believe computers are absolutely essential. They're good. It's good to have them. It's incredible, computer technology, what it has done for us. We don't remember the old days when we were in school. We had to go to the library to do a report.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I love my phone for, because
now all you have to do is look shit up.
I'm on the toilet. I get in a mood. I want to look up stereo surround receivers. It's right there. I can look them up. I don't even have to go to the library. I don't have to go on the internet. My phone has the internet. I'm like, oh good, I can look at stereo receivers and relax.
Well, this is why, I think Spock's line here, where he said that computers make excellent and efficient servants. Too often these days, we're serving our computers. And our computers, they may be giving us a smaller world in which to communicate, but they're also watching us. They're calculating our every moves. They're coming up with algorithms.
Yeah, they hit me with ads where I'm like, I just looked at this thing, and it's like, there was one time that their algorithm was so off. It was like chubby man gay dating. I'm not making this up. They hit me with an ad of like two chubby gay men. And I'm like, you're so off.
Oh my God.
I'm not making this up. That was a while back.
Oh my heart.
There was another one for like, hire someone to come over and give you a foot massage or something. And I'm like, that's not. Look through my search history. Feet is like the one perv I don't have.
Exactly. I'm going to do an episode about for my podcast. I am not into feet.
No.
Why is everybody into feet on?
That's like, I think that's like literally like the number one fetish is feet.
Yes, I guess some women have very nice feet, but I'm not into fucking feet. I mean, this is not a John Waters film, for God's sake.
No.
Anyway, off-color humor. Thanks for listening to Ship to Ship, and we hope to be back next time with I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Neither do I.
Let me check the old thingy and what's on my schedule. My schedule, as Picard would say. Schedule. We'll be right on schedule.
I am tired.
Where's the production order?
I hope it's something very gay.
Okay, we did that. Oh, Corbomite. We're going to talk about Corbomite next time. 2 episodes from the
Corbomite maneuver, isn't it?
The Corbomite maneuver and the Deadly Years, where Corbomite is referenced.
Let's get the hell out of here.
So we'll see you then, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Ship to Ship, a Star Trek podcast, with your hosts, David Lawler and David B. Anderson. To find out more about us, subscribe to our YouTube channel or visit us at www.blissville.net or on Facebook at Misadventures in Blissville. Good night.